From the perspective of psychobiographical and forensic psychological analysis, this family dynamic involves several factors that the scientific literature views not as direct causes, but rather as key risk factors for developing antisocial and maladaptive behavioral patterns. Firstly, the absence of a stable father figure and overall family instability are frequently cited in studies of serial and sexual killers as recurring biographical elements. When combined with other adverse conditions, these factors can contribute to the formation of compensatory strategies centered around control, dominance, and the pursuit of power. Secondly, family stigmatization, chronic experiences of shame, and a sense of inferiority can be understood within the context of literature on pathological narcissism as the conditions for defensive grandiosity and vulnerable self-esteem. Thirdly, emotional deprivation and the lack of an emotionally safe environment during critical developmental periods have been consistently linked in studies on attachment and developmental psychopathology to emotional regulation disorders, a profound lack of empathy, and a heightened risk of antisocial behavior. Take, for example, a study focusing on 50 serial killers whose motive was sexual gratification. It found that 50% of them had experienced psychological abuse in childhood, 36% had suffered physical abuse, and 26% sexual abuse, while the rate of neglect stood at 18%. The authors noted that the rates of psychological, physical, and sexual abuse within this group were significantly higher than comparable societal norms. But there's one particular marker that James Ressler, the author of The Serial Killer Against God, simply couldn't overlook as an experienced profiler with over 30 years in the Bureau. After finishing the second grade, meaning he was about 8 years old, Alexander Dvorkin was sent to a pioneer summer camp, and just 2 weeks in, he climbed the fence and ran away. Dvorkin himself writes in his memoirs that the experience of living in a camp under bugle and drum was sharply negative for him. So in his book, James Ressler asks a very logical question. What on earth could have happened to an 8-year-old boy at that camp to make him choose the risk and guaranteed punishment of running away, just to escape whatever was going on there? From an analytical perspective, an act like this can be viewed as a form of extreme avoidance, a reaction where the internal feeling of threat becomes far stronger than the fear of any external consequences. And that is exactly why James Ressler puts forward the hypothesis that this episode wasn't just some childish rebellion against discipline. It could point to a much deeper traumatic experience, potentially including physical or sexual abuse.